Okay, guys, I got a serious update for you. You heard me talk about SEMA and the product roadmap radar. I just caught up with Matt, who's the founder there, and he gave me the latest on what they are building. And my mind is blown. The team at SEMA are taking things to the next level. Built around the core of the product roadmap radar, i.e. code and Jira analysis, they are building agent orchestration across the product lifecycle. Picture this. You hook up this system same as before, i.e. integrate your repository and your backlog, Jira today. From that point, SEMA's agent analyzes the codebase and makes suggestions as to what needs to be done next and what could improve, optimize the product. Then, if those tasks are routine, the agent assigns the task to a coding agent, think something like Devin, to complete the minutia, while assigning the human-in-the-loop task to engineers themselves. What you end up with is engineers focusing on building core competency features while AI handles all the rest. If you're not salivating right now, I don't think you fully understand what this means. But here's what I would suggest. Right now, their product is in a closed beta, and SEMA is looking for folks to sign up for their Product Intelligence Advisory Board. This gives you the opportunity to use the product, give feedback, help shape the future of what's built. Oh, and not to mention additional free usage of the product potentially through the end of 2026. So, if that fits your workflow and toolset, you need to reach out today. Go to codestory.co/nextlevel, NEXTLEVEL, and reach out to Matt at SEMA to learn more and join the Product Intelligence Advisory Board. Again, that's codestory.co/nextlevel. This episode is sponsored by Postman. Postman is the world's leading API platform, trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500 and over 40 million developers. Tap into APIs from 18,000 plus companies to power agents that make smarter decisions. Learn more at postman.com/podcast/codestory. This message is sponsored by Melee Search. Today, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And Melee Search gives your users the experience they need with lightning-fast performance, full-text search, AI usage, and multimodal capabilities. Melee Search delivers relevant results in less than the blink of an eye. Use the promo code CODESTORY at checkout to get 2 months free at meleesearch.com. That's MEILI search.com.
There was a company, it was called Apollo, and they built a solution. And I was super smart, or I thought I was super smart. So I took their solution and made it much, much better. From a business perspective, it was the worst idea ever. After 1.5 years and almost going broke, so Apollo changed their licenses. They had a product and they changed the license from open source to closed source. And we sat together in the Netherlands. It was a retreat. And we figured out one evening, we looked at the numbers and we figured out we're dead. So at that point, it was clear it's over. So we killed our first product. My name is Jens Neuse and I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Wondergraph.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their
A
back.
company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve
Most
more.
proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was a
Yes,
pain.
we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time.
The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want
It's
it.
not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Laupart, and today how Jens Neuse has built the open source solution for federation that avoids drift under a single trusted contract model. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. Don't settle for less when you can have more MOR with Paddle, your merchant of record. Eliminate the headaches of payments, grow your revenue everywhere, and focus on what you do best, building your product. Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. This episode is brought to you by Propel. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use Propel Auth. PropelAuth is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like managed UIs, enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, PropelAuth adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with PropelAuth. Check them out at propelauth.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. Jens Neuse grew up in Germany, originally planning to be a carpenter. In his second year as an apprentice, he was in a motorcycle wreck that thrust him into a process of surgery and healing. Eventually, he decided he wouldn't be doing carpentry and got into sysadmin work. Once he got bored with this, he moved into startups, learned how to code, and started digging into programming, APIs, and eventually GraphQL Federation. Outside of tech, he's married with 3 young kids. He loves to sit ski on the mountain, which is the coolest carbon fiber chair on a ski where you steer with your knees and hips. After chasing building a better Apollo, Jens and his team ran into a point where their prior product and company was doomed to go under. When they accepted this fact, they started to think about what people actually wanted and started to dig into the federation of GraphQL. This is the creation story of WonderGraph.
WonderGraph is a tech company. We're 30 people. Most of us are engineers, and we build a platform. We call it Cosmo. It's fully open source, and we offer a managed version of that. And at the very core, what we do is you can do GraphQL Federation with our platform. And for everybody who doesn't know what that means is, imagine you have a very large API, and this API, it's like a tree. And this tree is split down into subtrees. So it's split down into sub-services. If you put all these services together, you have the one API, but the implementation is actually split into these subsystems. And what is cool about this is on the consumer side, it looks like a monolith. And on the implementation side, it's actually microservices. So that means you can have a lot of different apps and use cases and mobile and LLMs and AI agents, and you can have all sorts of API consumers. They all think they talk to a monolith, but on the other side, there can actually be 100 teams, and each team responsible for one little part of this tree. It's an approach that allows an organization that is growing or that has a very large domain to implement. It allows them to scale that across many teams, and there are super interesting problems to solve. For example, if you change one field in one of the services, you need to figure out that it's compatible with all the other services. And maybe you want to have some governance in place that if you create a user type and I want to add a field to the user type, maybe we should have a process where you can propose the change and I can review it and we can agree on good schema design and these kind of things, because you can't have Wild West with 100 teams building APIs. You can, but there's a certain point where people like the specialists in the market, they will then say, this is called API sprawl. When everybody does whatever they want, then it's not gonna end well. And we solve all these kind of problems of scaling APIs and making sure that this all fits together. And yeah, it's interesting stuff. It started like very typical. And by the way, if technical founders are listening, this is where you should listen very carefully, because you can learn a lot from our mistakes, especially my mistakes. Okay. So there was a company, it was called Apollo, and they built a solution. And I was super smart, or I thought I was super smart. So I took their solution and made it much, much better. Like it really was better. They had over 100 million in funding, and our company had 3 million in funding. And I said, okay, let's take what they have, make it better, and create like a new standard, a better standard, and go to the world, and they will take the better solution. From a business perspective, it was the worst idea ever. This old idea of I take something and then I have good intentions and I want to build a better thing and I want to solve it in a better way. The problem is I would say I have made a very interesting transition. Like when I started WonderGraph, I was very much like super focused on the tech and how to build things and how to make them fast and efficient and everything. And over the years, I have completely transitioned into how can we build something that people will buy? Because there's a huge gap between amazing solution and solution that people want to buy. So after 1.5 years and almost going broke, like we were almost dead and we had to let go some people. And one of the founders actually was ready to leave the ship because it was sinking too fast. He wanted to stay outside on the sideline and help us reduce the burn. But what we figured out after, I think, 1.5, 2 years, and that was our pivot is, so Apollo changed their licenses. They had a product and they changed the license from open source to closed source. And we sat together in the Netherlands. It was a retreat. And we figured out one evening, we looked at the numbers and we figured out we're dead. So at that point, it was clear it's over. So we killed our first product and we built Cosmo. It's so stupid simple. We sat in Netherlands. There was like this was like an old sheep house. We sat all together and we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Stefan, one of my co-founders, he opened his black notebook and he looked at it and he said, I have some notes from a couple of meetings. And like our last straw is that a couple of people said, could you do Apollo Federation but open source? And so we sat there in this old sheep house and we were like, okay, if that's the thing what people want, let's build Cosmo. And then 2 weeks after this retreat, he was like, it is typical fashion. Hey guys, I have built something. It's called Cosmo. And we were, holy, it cannot be. What did you do? And he built the first MVP of Cosmo and he just pulled something together.
What I want to dive into is that MVP. And so maybe it was when your co-founder brought the solution and then you took it from there, or maybe it's a little bit before or after in all of that. I'm curious about that MVP. Tell me about it. What sort of tools you were using to bring it to life and how long it took you to basically take it to the users where they could use Cosmo.
So this was in the pre-AI era. So I don't know, man, like 2 years ago or something. So it was a different time. You didn't have cursor. So, you know, the old guys like us, we wrote code by hand. What we did is actually on one day in the on-site, we had the realization, okay, we're dead. And then next day, what we did is we sat together, like the whole team, and we talked a bit to customers and looked at the notes and figured out and looked a bit at Apollo. And we were like, okay, what's the minimum thing we need? What would make people buy? And we built that first version. It was like really bare bones, like compared to today. I would say it was like 5% of the scope, but we knew we need an API gateway. It needs to be compatible with the Apollo Federation spec. We knew we need a backend to somehow manage the state and everything. So Dustin built like a Node.js backend. And we knew that we need a studio. So we built a Next.js studio with Tailwind, like not waste time on UI or anything. We also knew that we want to build everything on open source and keep things like super simple. We didn't want to roll our own auth. So we used Keycloak. It's ugly, but it is complete. It has a lot of features. It's well maintained. And today we have a Keycloak provider. They are ISO certified and everything. Like we're now SOC 2 and we're working on ISO 27001. Like when you have enterprise customers, you have new problems. But coming back to the MVP, it was really like we had a router in Go, we had a CLI in TypeScript, a backend in TypeScript, and front-end Next.js and bare bones. And I think one of our big advantages, and this is also something I would recommend someone if they also want to build a successful business, we try to use the most boring stack we can use. That means the most boring database in the world, Postgres. And we just deployed this thing on the most boring Kubernetes cluster on GCP. We use GCP Autopilot. We don't use any fancy features or any fancy tech. If you want to be fast and innovative, use tech that is proven and boring. Because the last thing you really want to do is build on top of something that keeps breaking. You know what's interesting? We have this GCP cluster, and I think now for 3 years in a row, our backend, it's 100% up, although it's just a Node.js container on GCP. But I don't know, it's such a great architecture to deploy to.
Okay, guys, I got a serious update for you. You heard me talk about SEMA and the product roadmap radar. I just caught up with Matt, who's the founder there, and he gave me the latest on what they are building. And my mind is blown. The team at SEMA are taking things to the next level. Built around the core of the product roadmap radar, i.e. code and Jira analysis, they are building agent orchestration across the product lifecycle. Picture this. You hook up this system same as before, i.e. integrate your repository and your backlog, Jira today. From that point, SEMA's agent analyzes the codebase and makes suggestions as to what needs to be done next and what could improve, optimize the product. Then, if those tasks are routine, the agent assigns the task to a coding agent, think something like Devin, to complete the minutia, while assigning the human-in-the-loop task to engineers themselves. What you end up with is engineers focusing on building core competency features while AI handles all the rest. If you're not salivating right now, I don't think you fully understand what this means. But here's what I would suggest. Right now, their product is in a closed beta, and SEMA is looking for folks to sign up for their Product Intelligence Advisory Board. This gives you the opportunity to use the product, give feedback, help shape the future of what's built. Oh, and not to mention additional free usage of the product potentially through the end of 2026. So, if that fits your workflow and toolset, you need to reach out today. Go to codestory.co/nextlevel, NEXTLEVEL, and reach out to Matt at SEMA to learn more and join the Product Intelligence Advisory Board. Again, that's codestory.co/nextlevel. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. As a startup, you face unique challenges to stay competitive. You and your team need to stay focused on your product, not your payments. You need to do more, MOR, and DIY less. With Paddle. Paddle is your merchant of record, becoming the seller of record for your SaaS transactions, enabling your team to focus on what's important, your product. Paddle handles all payment management across multiple gateways and methods, taking ownership of tax liability while remaining compliant with regulations across all markets. The platform handles all aspects of SaaS billing models, upgrades, add-on, trials, and more. Let's look at the results. MOR revenue optimization is built into Paddle and accounts for up to 16% higher conversion rates, reduced payment failures, localized pricing, and churn prevention, recovering 40% of cancellations. Their developer-friendly tools are API first with comprehensive documentation, removing the burden from your engineers. With Paddle as your merchant of record, you'll generate more revenue, find and keep more customers, grow faster, and stay compliant everywhere. So what are you waiting for? Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. This episode is sponsored by Fullscale. Let me guess, your team's shipping sprint velocity looks good, but you're still asking yourself, is anyone actually thinking about the why? Matt Watson's been there. He's the founder behind Vin Solutions and Stackify, and now runs Fullscale with a 300-plus person dev team. And after 2 decades in the trenches, he's seen the same pattern over and over. Smart developers stuck in systems that reward ticket-taking instead of real thinking. That's why he wrote Product Driven, a playbook for tech leaders who are done babysitting developers and ready to build teams that own the outcome. If you're tired of translating every feature, doing all the thinking, or wondering why your smart team is still stuck, this is the fix. Go to productdriven.com/codestory to grab the book and get the bonus toolkit to help your team shift from output to outcomes, like 12 bold ways to get your retros out of robot mode. Again, that's productdriven.com/codestory. Now, how did you progress and mature the product from that point? I'm curious about how you built your roadmap. And, you mentioned enterprise customers. There are probably enterprise customers now, maybe not in the early days. I'm curious about how you decided that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with WonderGraph.
I think there's 2 parts, and I think this was one of the most stressful periods of my life because I'm responsible for the product. So I have a vision of things I would like to do. And then one thing I have to admit, and I hope not so many customers are listening to us here, but one thing we did in the beginning is we had enterprises in the pipeline, and what we tried to sell them it never really worked and it never really existed. Like, you cannot imagine how stressful this was, but we tried to make deals, but we knew it's not working. Somehow, I don't know, it was, as a founder, you need to find customers who need something so desperately that they hop on a call with you, the founder. You can build trust. They are not buying your solution because your solution is garbage. They buy you, like you are the product. So I was on calls constantly and we educated people. We were consulting, we were helping, we were doing everything we can. Plus my CTO, Dustin, we call him the machine. Somehow we figured things out. There was always this bouncing between the vision where I think if we go there, we will be able to have a larger total addressable market. As a founder, as a CEO, like one of your major goals is not just add fancy features or something, but you want to add stuff that allows you to have a bigger funnel, talk to more people, sell to more people. So that's like your long-term North Star. But then you have this constant problem of we need this and that to close that deal. So for a very long time, I had to give up my vision and just do what secured us deals because we were broke. And so we went from deal to deal, and then our ARR burn was still high, but our investors gave us another 500K. And then we landed some bigger deals, and then we quickly became profitable. And that was a year where within 12 months, we went from we're dead in 2 months to we're profitable. That was a huge year. And yeah, it was actually last year.
So there's people involved, right? You mentioned you're a 30-person team here. How do you build that team? How did you build that team? And I'm curious what you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you.
In the beginning, when you try to hire, you will realize that nobody wants to join you because you're nobody. Like, I can work for so many established companies. Why would I join you guys? And so you hire what you can. And I think this is one of my first points in terms of helping other founders to start with something. It's not just I build a company and then I raise money and then success, but maybe before you build a company, build a network. Like you need that network already. You need the people. And maybe if you don't have the network and you don't have the people, maybe it's not yet the right time. Maybe you should work in a startup and build the network. Okay, we didn't have that because we made every mistake in the book. One funny thing we did in the beginning is we used a tool and 1 month later, the company shut down. And so we liked the people and they asked us, hey, we have 2 guys here from India. Maybe they can work for you. We hired 2 young guys from India. I think in the end, this was like they were juniors. It was one of our luckiest hires, I would say, because, and this is something you need to think about, if you have a machine like Dustin. So you need Dustin, the CTO machine. If you don't have the best CTO in the world, you will fail. So you need someone who's capable of building back-end, front-end, everything. Like you need that. But if you give him two guys from India who are junior but extremely ambitious, they will work day and night and they will help your Dustin to get the front end done and some other things. And the coolest thing is they are now with us like 3 years and they know, like, they might not be seniors yet, but they know our domain better than everybody else. So my recommendation, have someone extremely senior and maybe give them a junior, and this junior can grow and everything. Now, the other question is, who do we hire today and what are we looking for? And I would say, like, you need a skill set. It needs to be good enough so that you can do the job. But I think most importantly, what we look for is attitude. It's, do you care? Is it important to you to build something great and to not just finish the ticket, but do you really want to build something great? And this can be like marketing, sales, whatever. And I think attitude is everything, because if we need a programmer and we need a senior, you cannot be a junior. But if you're a senior and you don't care, it just won't work. And on the other side, if you're lacking some skills, but you really care, that gap, it will be filled quickly. If Python and you don't know Go, but you really care, you will pick it up so fast. And I think especially in a small startup, we want to find people who are into this problem, who care, who want to grow together. And so we don't have like superstars in the team. We have Dustin is really good, but very humble. I would say, and this is our culture, we're working hard. Everybody helps each other, and we have that common North Star. We want to hit it big, and it's nice, humble people.
This episode is brought to you by Propel-Off. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use Propel-Off. Propel-Off is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, Propel-Off adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When Off is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with Propel-Off. Check them out at propelloff.com. That's propelauth.com. This episode is sponsored by Search. In today's digital landscape, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone, and you need a user experience that drives customer satisfaction. You need Search. Search has lightning-fast performance, returning answers in less than 50 milliseconds. Yeah, you heard that right. Faster than the blink of an eye. The open-source AI search engine is plug-and-play, so you can get up and running in minutes with smart presets, allowing you to start searching through your data with zero configuration. Search utilizes advanced full-text search and AI, ensuring your results are ultra-relevant with semantic depth. It's multimodal, supporting images, videos, and audio, along with being federated, i.e. searching across multiple data sources. And it's developer-friendly. Whether you're building a content-rich website or enterprise application, Search delivers the experience your users expect and deserve. For a limited time, CodeStory users can get 2 months free. Use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, at checkout. Just go to melisearch.com and get started today. That's MEILI search.com. Okay, let's flip to scalability. And this will be interesting because it's critical to what you're building, not only to support the enterprise, but to federate GraphQL in general. So, I'm curious where scalability has sort of reared its ugly head, right? Have there been interesting areas where you've had to fight it as you've grown?
Scalability on the software side, I would say it's very interesting because in the first year where we built our software, we ran into some customers who had ridiculous queries. You have to think about, like, the way GraphQL Federation works is you have this monolithic schema. You send a query you have the router, that's the API gateway. And the router, it takes this GraphQL query and then looks into the query. And like I said earlier, GraphQL Federation is like you take a tree and you cut it into subtrees, and each service is responsible for a subtree. So you can imagine if I write a query that covers like some part of this tree, it needs to be resolved by always a different combination of subtrees. And this gets especially complicated to figure out what to do is when you have like abstract types like unions or interfaces. And let's say one service implements some structs that are members of a union, another subgraph implements some other structs. So we have a process, we call this query planning, very complex engineering behind that to figure out how do we get the data and how do we get it in the right order. And in the end, when this process is done, we have a query plan, which again, it's a tree of fetches. By the way, if you learn programming and you think data structures are stupid, we do a lot of things with data structures and trees and everything. And you do tree walking every day. And I personally love tree walking from a mental model, like walking through ASTs. I love it, and transforming ASTs. It's fun. But okay, coming back to this scalability issue, we had customers who would send more than 10 kilobytes of query to the router. And then the router for, I don't know, a minute or something tries to build up query. And so we had issues where we needed to figure out, okay, how can we build caches so that the query planner can look up things faster so that query planning time is faster. Now, like our P95 query planning time is like 10 seconds, which is still not good enough. We also build a query planning cache because when you start a new router or when you send a router a new config, that cache is empty. We also build a heuristics-based system that looks into your analytics and builds a list of queries we should warm up a router before it gets a new config. That means you never really plan a query because we have planned it ahead of time. That's quite smart, and it helps us to make the router extremely efficient. One other problem we had is with this customer with those weird queries, we realized that due to the structure of the queries, we would build like this query of 10 kilobytes, we would actually build a subquery that we sent to the service of, I don't know, like a couple of megabytes. It was too big. And we looked into it and we figured out that the problem is the query we generate for the subservice, it actually has some duplicate fields because of the way we plan queries. A solution we built that reduces the query size by 99%. It's actually pretty cool. So I built an algorithm that would traverse this query, and every time it walks through a selection set, it would print the selection set into a printer, which in this case was a hash function. And so we would build a hash map where we keep track of all the selection set in this gigantic query and then try to figure out, do we have duplicate queries? And then if you find these duplicates, you go from the leaf nodes all the way up step by step to the parent nodes, and you replace all duplicate selection sets with a single fragment. A fragment it's like a reference to a selection set, which you can then, with an inline fragment, you can inline it back. It's like creating a function and then instead of calling code, calling the function. And so, yeah, I built this algorithm, quite simple, a little bit stupid actually, but it's able to reduce the query size by 99%. And yeah, we have it on for quite some time, and this allows us to send the smallest possible query. So that was some challenges on the technical side.
Okay, so as you step out on the balcony, you look across all that you've built at WonderGraph. What are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of the team. The team we have built, I like to meet them. Like sometimes we do retreats. Maybe investors don't like to hear it so much, but for me, it was always important to do something important with my time in life. And just becoming rich, it's not enough. It cannot be the goal. Once you have the money you need to keep the family afloat and afford a vacation, money is not the big topic anymore. You want to go beyond that. And my answer would have been different a couple of years ago. But when I look at our company, we have built a group of really smart, amazing people. I really like them. And I think we're doing something meaningful together. And it makes me proud that we have built an environment where these people can spend so much time of their life together. I think that's super meaningful.
Okay, let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
I hinted it, but our first product was completely wrong and we wasted so much energy. We had an SDK. This SDK, it would allow you to combine multiple APIs together. So it was designed for a single user or a small team to be efficient. And we didn't really have a lot of success with this solution. I thought it's a great solution. Some people in open source, they really liked it. Quickly, we had 2K stars and people were really engaged, and we got a lot of feedback on GitHub and everything. So from an outside perspective, you would say, this looks quite successful. It's a good thing, and people ask questions and we kept improving. What I didn't realize is when you build a solution, and you listen to people and you listen to feedback from people who are not paying you, you can keep building forever, but you're paving the road for the wrong people. I think one of the biggest mistakes here was that I was in love with my solution and I wanted to build what I think is right. And what we didn't figure out early on, and we should have focused much more on that, is to think about monetization and everything. So we said, okay, nobody is buying our support. We now build a cloud, the Vercel for backend, so that people can host our thing. And we build CI pipelines like GitHub Actions and deployments on Fly.io, which is a horrible service because it keeps breaking. And we built this whole cloud service where you could deploy our SDK, because we thought if we do that, if we only automate that problem, then everybody would come. And then we had 2 customers. And they were horrible customers because they were super demanding and they paid like $50 per month, and it just didn't work out. I think the biggest learning here is, and like technical founders love to hide in code and they love to be like, I'm just going to build and I just add more features and eventually we will be successful. And I did that for a very long time. Biggest mistake. And I can tell you, if you want to be a good founder, your number one job is to talk to people, talk to customers, and get them to commit to buying something or to commit to anything. Like these days, it's like when you stop being needy, it's so simple. You don't want to admit it because you're just so hopeful, but it's wrong. Like today, we do very simple mechanisms because we're not needy. We're like, okay, we engage with the customer. Then we say, can we please do an NDA? Because without NDA, we cannot talk with you about financials. And then they would say, you know what? Like NDA, that's too much work. So at that point, if they don't want to go the way to create an NDA, it's not a problem for them. It's not important. Move on. Find someone who wants to sign an NDA, because get the other side to do something for you. Nobody will ever give you money if they are not even willing to get someone else to sign an NDA or something. Get people to commit to something. And also another big thing, you want to operate in a big market. If you operate in a very small market and it's hard to get some leads, like it's much easier to be in extremely large market than just because you can talk to more people. Yeah, like big conclusion, stop building, like really never stop building. Talk to people, get them to commit to something, and only build stuff when you really have an opportunity where people want to buy something from you.
Let's move forward then. I'm curious about what the future looks like for Wondergraph, for what you've built, the product, and for your team.
That's very straightforward. The cool thing is when you start in a niche and you master it, and we now have, 50 plus enterprise customers. If you talk with them enough, you learn a lot. And so what we're currently doing is essentially 2 things. One is we want to be in a much bigger TAM, so bigger total addressable market. So we take the principles of federation. Currently, you can only really use Cosmo with GraphQL. And we're opening that up and we apply the same principles and tooling to REST APIs and other APIs. So we allow anybody to use that, even companies that don't want to use GraphQL at all. So that's one part. And the second part is we learn a lot through our customers that software engineering is actually not so much about tech also, but it's a lot about people and process. And so we're investing heavily in tooling for API design and collaboration and helping people build great APIs together. And that's really the focus is like less on queries and query planning and these kind of things, but much more on how can people work together better. And in the next couple of months, we're launching something super exciting.
Let's switch to you. Jens, who influences the way that you work? I mean, name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
I would say in the past, read a lot of books. Well, one person is Steve Jobs, because I always felt like he really cares about his stuff and quality. He was a bit crazy, but he really cared, and he wanted to build a great product, and he cared about aesthetics and things like that. So I wouldn't say it's a role model, but it's definitely inspiration. And I think my biggest critic is myself, and for me, it's never enough. So I don't know. Even though you could say we have some level of success, we're still very early, and we have a lot to learn. And I think it's important to stay on the ground and humble. And sometimes it's good to have a wife and kids and family who keep you grounded, and otherwise you're just a weird tech guy. But having a family in the back, I think it really helps you to stay a normal person.
100% agree. Last question then. So you're getting on a plane, you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. And can we show it off to you right there on the plane? What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
I think when you're a young entrepreneur, it is very hard to filter inputs and feedback from other people. Like, there will be very experienced people who can tell you how they were successful. The problem typically is they were successful in a different market, or maybe in a different time. And tech has changed, and time has changed, and the world has changed. And maybe you should just go your way. I think you should have your own North Star. Like, where do you want to go long term? Be stubborn long term, but short term, don't be too stubborn. You can adjust. Like me, I wanted to help people build great APIs. I came up with my own solution. It didn't work. I adopted something from Apollo. That worked. And now I can actually go back to my solution. I can now make it better again. But I first had to go a different path. So my advice for you, listen to people. Don't be stupid, but don't listen too much. Find your own way, because how will we build the next unicorns if you're doing what we did? Then we already did it. You need to do something else. Figure out your own way.
That's fantastic advice. Couldn't agree more. Well, Jens, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story of WonderGraph.
Thank you, Noah.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.